Do we want to like look at,
Oh yeah, let's do that first.
how do I make it just, okay.
I don't know.
All right.
Camera on.
Speaker. I don't know. Just start talking, Melissa.
Hi, welcome to our session.
We don't really know what we're doing, obviously.
We do.
I'm Jackie.
I'm Melissa, and between the two of us, we have taught we've been in education for over 72 years. So we have had a lot of experiences with student teachers, and obviously we were student teachers ourselves. So we feel like we have a lot that we want to share. Whether you're a student teacher or whether you're hosting one, we hope that we have some great tips for you today.
And what 72 years translates into is
We're
are
old.
So be patient with
Yes.
us as we navigate this fun stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, ready?
And
All right.
This is Becky, the staff person. One more time, I just got a message that said, please to tell you two not to close the room because that will affect everybody.
We won't.
Okay,
don't do that.
No worries.
thank you.
I will say, just so that you are aware, that the other three of us are all education students.
Yay!
I know, I like all three of us. So just so you know.
So are you going to be student teaching next semester or?
No, I have I have quite a bit to go, but I'm an over preparer.
Love
Yes,
it.
we love
Love
it.
That's the best two words you could have said.
Mhm. Yay. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for sharing that. It's fine, right?
It's all good. We don't know
Okay,
what we're
yeah.
doing.
So what we want to do is we want to, during this session, and now that we know who our audience is, we want to talk about the responsibility of supervising a student teacher, the logistics, and then we've talked with the student teachers once they've gotten their first jobs, and we've found out where we may have like not prepared them enough. And so Jackie and I have come up with some ideas where we think it might be helpful when they get in their real job.
And so for you as student teachers, things that you want to make sure that you get the help from your cooperating teacher on these aspects.
And the opportunity to do, yes.
Yes, because what we found, like she said, we found that we hire a lot of our student teachers.
Mhm.
So if you are in math and you need a job, come student teach at Jeff.
Yeah.
Ooh, there's a plug. And we have talked to them after they've been in their first year teaching, and they said it's nothing like what student teaching is. So what we want to try to do is figure out how to make student teaching a more realistic opportunity for the student teachers so that you're more successful and you feel more confident when you go out into the world.
Yes.
Okay.
Catch that. Got it. Okay. So it's really important to have a quality mentor. So research has shown that if you, I can't read that.
I'm trying to make it so you can read it. I'm sorry.
That the characteristics of the student teaching school and the cooperating teacher predict the effectiveness of early career teachers. Specifically, early career teachers are more effective after student teaching in a high quality learning environment with a highly effective cooperating teacher. So I know that's not up to you at this point, those of you who are education students, but we have to really help our schools see that we really need to make sure we're thinking about who we're placing the student teachers with, because that does affect their success when they get into their school. Okay. So
This is you.
well, so we here at our school, we really take it seriously, and we want to get away from the mindset of, oh, I want to host a student teacher so that it's easier for me. If you're wanting to host a student teacher, it's going to be more work, not less work, because you're going to be instructing them and working with them with that attitude of wanting to help them. And then we as a school have to make sure we're placing them with quality staff. And then here's the super important thing is that host has to constantly remind the student teachers that their experience is a potential job interview. So everything they do, people are looking at them like, oh, would I want to hire them? How are they acting in this situation? And so being on time and being prompt and getting the lesson plans done, all that stuff matters. And we've noticed in the last few years, we're seeing a decline in people being prepared.
One of the things, I don't know how to move this over, so we can make sure we're both on the screen. Sorry.
That's good.
We're old, remember? So one of the things that we find with student teaching is it's really hard. It's the hardest teaching you'll ever do, first of all. And I'm here, school starts at 8. I'm here between 6:30 and 7 every day, just because that's who I am. That doesn't mean that you as a student teacher have to be there at 6:30 or 8 or set between 6:30 and 7, but you do need to kind of make sure that you mesh with your cooperating teacher and just show them that you have the desire to succeed and you're going to be there and you're going to be on time and you're going to be ready and you're going to be early and you can stay late. Teaching is rough, and trying to teach and have a job at the same time is really rough, and trying to find the time to get everything done. It's a hard thing to balance.
Navigate. Mhm.
So just, you have to come in with the mindset of this is your job, and you have to be willing to come a little early, stay a little late, and do what needs to be done.
And if you're not a morning person and you want to stay after school, just have everything ready before you leave, so that if you come in, if you have to be there at, like, if school starts at 5 till 8 and you get there at 7:30, everything's ready to go and you're not worried about photocopies. Everything's just ready to go before you leave. And it doesn't matter whether you're early or late, but if you have everything ready before, early morning person or a late night person, it matters if you're ready to teach the class.
Right.
Yep. All right. So one of the things that we found very helpful, and if you're getting ready to enter the student teaching experience, you might ask for this. We just make sure that all the expectations are clear so that there's no conflict. We want our student teachers to know exactly what we're expecting of them. And we want to make sure that that meshes with the university. And so we want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. So here's an example. We both had year-long student teachers last year in our Algebra 1 class. And we decided that it would be consistent with what's happening in the world today, with what we expect from our students and what Purdue is expecting, that the 3 goals would be collaboration, analysis of student errors, and technology integration for the months of September and October. So we made that very clear to them. And so then we addressed each issue. So for collaboration, work with the team of Jackie and Melissa. I bet you guys are wishing you had us, right? Yeah.
Everybody does. It's just, yeah.
And then in collaboration with other Algebra 1 student teachers to prepare Unit 3. So we made it clear that that's where the collaboration, we would be looking at what they were doing with the other student teachers, because we work as a team. And so our student teachers must work as a team as well. And then analysis of student errors. We wanted them to grade the classwork. We have a flipped classroom, and our next session is on that, if you ever want to join our flipped classroom session.
Much more interesting.
Yeah. But so we had them starting out by grading the classwork. So instead of homework on the flipped classroom, the students do the work in the class. So they started out by grading that classwork, and then they would meet with students, and then we would have them like make notes on the papers, and then they would talk with us about what errors they noted, and then we would say, well, what can we do tomorrow or during the next class that's going to address the errors that we saw? And then I just had a standard to any student who got a 7 or less out of 10, that the student teacher would meet with that student. So that's for the month of September and October. That's how they were getting to know the students, and they were thinking about math, and they were thinking about errors. And then finally, the third goal for those 2 months was technology integration. So we had the student teachers put the videos for the flipped classroom and the Ed puzzle, and then they had to check the videos to make sure the quizzes matched the videos, and then they made sure that there were no errors in there, no typos, anything like that, because like we said, we're old.
We make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
I told my kids yesterday 2 times 0 was 2, so
Stuff like that.
it's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
And then in OneNote, they had to make sure that they could do that. So in math, we last year during which was more COVID oriented, we had lots of kids in and out. So our administration wanted us to make sure that if they were out, they could continue. And we decided that using OneNote would be the easiest way, because they would have all of their homework and they could just do it whether they were in class or not, and they wouldn't be relying on that paper. So those were our 3 main goals for the months of September and October for our student teachers. And we just made it clear that these are the goals that we expect you to do. And everybody was on the same page.
Unfortunately, sometimes you get placed with a teacher who, like Melissa said, just thinks it's going to make it easier for them. If they have a student teacher, they don't have to work as hard. So these are things that as a student teacher, you want to make sure that you're getting these experiences. You want to make sure that, I mean, you need to demand of the teacher politely I need to work on this. I need to work on this. And my daughter, when she went to Ball State, and when she student taught, it was not a good experience. And she called me crying, saying, I just wasted 4 years of my life. I can't go into teaching. I can't do this.
And she's an amazing teacher now.
She is. She's been teaching 10 years. She's fantastic. She's won Teacher of the Year. And she's great. But that's just a mommy moment. But what I did is I said, blame Ball State. Tell the kids that you have to do this stuff, because if your teacher doesn't get you prepared in the way that you want to be prepared, then you need to advocate for yourself. And you just need to say, okay, I'm going to try this. And her cooperating teacher said, they aren't going to do it. The kids aren't going to do it. It's a waste of your time. So I said, then just put it on Ball State's shoulders. Say, this is what I have to do for my class. And then just do the things run the classroom the way you know it should be run. And honestly, just to brag a little, the teacher's class was always at the bottom of the tests. And by the end of her student teaching, they were at the top. They were the top class in every performance area. So you know what's right. And just don't go into that sad little, I can't, my cooperating teacher won't let me. Just know what you need to do. And these are just some ideas of things that you need to be able to do as a good teacher. So, okay.
Yep. So then we even broke it down. So even by date, see what happened is last year we had rules with the university where the students couldn't come back after Thanksgiving. So we had to be flexible. So that's super important. So if you look on our little chart with the asterisks, that's what they were still doing from home, because even though the Purdue students weren't allowed back on campus and we had to follow that rule, they still had to get this experience. So we had to think outside of the box, and we had to come up with, okay, since everything's online anyway, you can still be grading these papers, you can be giving feedback, and we just had to make it clear what the expectations were. So we just came up with a list, and then the ones that they had to be doing from home, we put a little asterisk by it. So we just made it very clear. This is what you're gonna be doing for grading, and this is what you'll be doing for planning. And again, if you notice on 11:30, all of Unit 5 doing Canvas, Unit 5 wasn't going to be taught until January, but we wanted to make sure they knew that that's important to get that thought through well in advance so that you're not at the last minute trying to pull together Unit 5.
I don't have anything. Go ahead.
Okay. And then they still had 3 weeks where they were the solo teacher. We'll talk about the different ways that you can approach team teaching, but so the red box, when I made my little calendar for my guy, the red box was the 3 weeks of solo teaching. And so I just laid it out. I teach a dual credit calculus class, so he couldn't be the solo teacher. So we really I didn't leave. So during Algebra 1, I would leave, but during calculus, I would maybe run and make a copy or something, but I still had to be in there. And so I just had different responsibilities. And so I just made it very clear that during the 3 weeks of solo teaching, these are the expectations, so that we were both on the same page. So, if I said, well, you didn't do this, he could say, well, that wasn't on my list. I didn't know. And I'd be like, oh yeah, sorry, my bad.
Well, and we did this because, again, talking to the past student teachers that are currently teaching, like, what did you need? What did we not give you? And it's really hard as a cooperating teacher to turn your class over.
Yes.
And it's really hard to just say, okay, you just do what you do because you've been taught perfectly by the university. So you just go ahead and do what you do, and we'll just stand back and do nothing. So we kind of spoon feed, I guess, our student teachers in a way, because we have all of the stuff made up. The notes are made up, the lessons are made up, the tests are made up, the quizzes are made up. So you, as a student teacher, they didn't get to learn how to do any of that. And so it's really hard to go in and know, what do I need to accomplish this week? So just, even if your teacher doesn't do this for you, make yourself a list of, these are the things that have to be done, and not just for the day. You've got to look at the next unit. You've got to be planning ahead. And so that's why we thought this just really helps them know what the expectations are, because it's overwhelming.
It is. And when you make your list, you can just run it by your supervising teacher and say, hey, this is what I thought would be a great goal for this week. Is this okay? Is there anything else we want to add to it? Did I put too much on here? And just make sure that you're both on the same page.
Yeah, you need to both be on the same page. I don't mean to go off on your own.
She does.
That's not a bad.
Nah. All right, we good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then you can see this is after the solo week ended on 4/16. So then you can see where I was helping him phase out. And so then everything went to this particular, just getting down into observations. So this is an example of the observation schedule that I pulled. Whoops, I was supposed to not have the last names on there.
It's okay.
Okay.
Most of these people aren't teaching anymore.
No, it's sad. 3 people, I told you. Okay, so what's important, and if you are in your phase out weeks, you're going to want to observe other teachers because you're getting ready to get yourself set up for your teaching experience. By this time, you most likely will know if you have a job, because most people start hiring around spring break. So when it gets to May, you're going to know what you're teaching most likely, where you're teaching, and what grade level, what content. So what we do is we set this up for our student teachers. So we think about teachers in the building that are highly effective. So no matter what the content. So we teach math, but we looked and found out where are the really great teachers in our building, no matter what they teach. We want them to see successful teaching. Then we also narrow it down on what they're going to be teaching. So we want to make sure they get observations in the area where they're going to be teaching. And that could be teachers that of all different levels. So I try to have them observe a new teacher in their content area, a new teacher, a teacher with about 4 or 5 years experience, and then a seasoned teacher in that content area. So that way they kind of see the different progressions. And then it's really important to know what you're looking for. So when I have my students teachers going out, I might have them look for, I have a list right there. I don't know if they can see it, but
They can only see the screen. They can't
oh, okay.
see us.
So-
I think we're off on the side.
Okay.
I don't know.
So classroom management. So sometimes when you're at the end of your student teaching, you're going to be like, oh, that's this really, oh, that's good.
I just pushed a button, something happened. We don't know what happened.
Yeah. So you might say, I really like something might bother you. Like if it bothers you, if the bathroom procedure bothers you, then when you go into other classrooms, look at their bathroom procedures. Or how to handle disruptive students. That might really bother you. Like, I really don't like the way this is. So you might be in your head, this is what I'm going to be looking for. Or how is the class structured? Is there activity time? Is there homework time? What's going on during the class? And then how are absent students managed? So I always send them out because obviously we've built relationships with them and we know what kind of bugs them or where they're weak. And so if we know that they're weak in an area, we're going to have them looking for other teachers to try to figure out how to handle that before they can get themselves in their own classroom. Anything you want to add to that?
Sometimes it's also interesting. I don't know if you're elementary, middle school, second, I don't know what you are, but in secondary, the nice thing is if you've got little Johnny that has driven you crazy for your 16-week student teaching experience and you are pulling your hair out over little Johnny, go watch little Johnny in other classes and see how the teacher deals with that. Because if you have a problem child that, and I should not be negative and say, we're all going to have that kid that just, they walk in the door and you just go, nah, but you handle it professionally. But just to see how other teachers get along with little Johnny and what they do with him, that sounds terrible, how they work with him to keep his behavior not being such a problem as it is in your class. So you're not always following the teacher. Sometimes you're following a student to see how things go.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Yeah. And so hopefully your teacher will set this up for you. If not, just ask about it. Just say, hey, where are your strongest teachers in the building? I want to go see them.
Yeah, the expectation is that you're supposed to go observe other teachers. It would be good to observe them beforehand. They do suggest that too. But beforehand, I'm going to be honest, and I still remember, this is year 42 for me. So I still remember back in 1979, when I went out for my observations, I would sit in the back of the classroom thinking that will never happen in my classroom. Oh my gosh, he didn't even see this kid. I had watched a kid tie another kid's shoelace to the chair so the kid would trip when he get up. And I just sat there thinking that will never happen in my classroom. Well, it's happened in my classroom, but it's better. It's actually more beneficial to go watch teachers afterwards, because then you do know where your weaknesses are. You do know the things that you struggled with, and then you can see how other people look for them. But you need to actually have a schedule, because it's real easy when you pull out to just say, I'm just going to go grade papers. I'm going to go work on something I need to do. I'm going to take care of this. I'm going to do that. I'm just going to take this as a free prep period. But really, this is the one time in your career that you get to see other people teach. So it's a real important part of the
Experience.
There we go. That's a better word. Yeah, go with that.
Okay. So when we informally talked, I shouldn't have had that bullet without two things.
It's okay.
When we talked to teachers in our building, they said that they would have liked more help with co-teaching, classroom management, differentiated instruction, and using data. So those are the things that we found. So we thought we would address those. All right. So co-teaching.
Purdue actually requires us to co-teach. I don't know what
Yes.
schools you guys are at, but Purdue requires co-teaching in our field.
So I have the copyright on there. So they have given us these models of co-teaching. You will probably find that one of these is something that you're going to do. One teach, one observe. So this could be helpful. So like if this person is being Johnny is being disruptive, then
That Johnny.
yeah, that Johnny. Then if you're teaching, then you can have the cooperating teacher write notes down if that's really driving you crazy of like what's going on. And then you guys can sit down and talk about that, or vice versa. So when the cooperating teacher is teaching, you can be taking notes on what's going on with Johnny. And it's like, wait, why is Johnny not misbehaving now? Or whatever. And it could be the opposite. Who knows? Because maybe they behave more for you. Who knows? One teach, one assist. That's when one teacher's up teaching and the other person's walking around helping. And we found that that's kind of how they like to get their feet wet, is that when we're teaching and they're walking around just answering questions as we're teaching, and that kind of helps them.
That's a huge strategy too. It's a great strategy to
Mhm.
have that. If one little person is really lost on something, and rather than stop the whole class and take the whole class's time up to get that one person redirected, the cooperating teacher, the co-teacher just can go over there and work with that person while you're kind of moving on. It's a great strategy. It's very powerful.
Those people.
I don't know. Maybe that's
Oh.
Becky's job.
Okay. All right. So then there's also stations, and stations could be an effective way to do an activity to get the kids engaged, differentiate. So you can have stations where the kids are independent. So maybe they're doing something on their device, but then there could be stations where they need the interaction. And so we can just set people up. Well, so my student teacher last time, he had this really great example. If he was going to have the students roll these giant dice, and then whatever it came up, that's the problem that they solved. So it was kind of fun, but somebody needed to monitor the giant dice with high school freshmen. And so I was out there monitoring that station, but it was a really fun station that he set up. Remember the dice?
We did not do the dice in my room, but your dice were very successful.
They were.
I was impressed.
Thanks. It was his idea.
It was good.
Yeah. Okay. Supplemental teaching. Do you want to talk about this?
I don't know, not until I read it. I know what it says.
So this is kind of like the person
Oh,
walking.
yeah.
Go ahead.
So
Yeah.
so this is when you can take a group of kids out. So the regular classroom goes on, but you've had kids that were absent, which we are having quarantine kids gone for 2 weeks at a time. And even though there's videos, they try to watch, you try to interact with them as much as you can via email, they still need more one-on-one. So the teacher can take out those kids that need a little bit of extra help, and they can work with them. And it's a form of differentiation also, is instead of us doing all of these 10 problems, those kids might do 3 problems with a little more one-on-one help, but then they'll master those 3 problems. So okay.
And then the next one is a differentiated type of instruction where each teacher can do it the same objective, but they're doing it differently. And so the example there that they gave us was in reading, but if we're trying to accomplish it, maybe somebody wants to do problems up on the board where somebody wants to do problems
Just on their paper.
Yeah. And so, but it can be that too, where you just split up and everybody takes one little piece.
You give a kid a whiteboard marker and let them go up to the board, they're thrilled
They're
to death half
happy.
the time. And so they just love going up there and doing their work up there, while the other kids are like, no, I just want to sit here at my seat, just do my own stuff. So
Mhm.
just giving them some options, but then it helps when to have 2 teachers that can lead each way.
True. And then team teaching is just when, well, Jackie did this with one of her friends, and they could finish each other's sentences because they both were teachers in the classroom, and they would do fun. You can just imagine that was fun.
We did every other word one time. One time I stood behind her and I was the arms and she was the talker, and just, it was pretty stupid, but we had a lot of fun and the kids enjoyed it. And I still get kids that I see out at the mall that'll say, oh my gosh, I loved your class. I learned so much and we did so much stuff. It was so much fun watching you two interact. And so it's hugely powerful to have team teaching. But does that mean when you are done with student teaching, you're going to get a team teacher? Maybe. There's
Maybe
a lot
not.
of co-teaching going on with special ed. And so you could end up with a really powerful ability, but during student teaching, you learn so much by watching another person and working with them.
And so a lot of our teachers, they might have a co-teacher. Maybe it's a special ed teacher in their classroom. And so by having these experiences during student teaching, that helps them to
Know how to
navigate
how to navigate and
that
how to-
experience.
how to work with it, because it's really hard. Because again, it's my classroom,
Mhm,
and then they throw this other person in there, and I'm thinking, well, they don't know as much as I know,
mhm,
and they're not as old as me. How could they do it?
mhm.
Okay, I'm a little arrogant. No, I'm really not. But it's just how to work. You got to get the best of each person.
Right. And what sometimes happens is the content person will teach and the special ed person will grade papers. Well,
Yeah, that's not powerful. You
No.
just need, and everybody has their gifts.
Mhm.
And that gift might be they can work with that child that drives you crazy. That it's a great way to work. And there are a lot of co-taught classes out there.
mhm.
So it's
Successful
also good
ones.
for you as a student teacher, having that experience. If you actually use a co-teaching model in your classroom, it's good for your interviews because you've got that experience.
Mhm. And you want to talk about it using examples.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So
Mhm.
keep track of everything. Well, that's
Yeah.
one thing we didn't put on the slides. Just
Oh,
take pictures, keep
Mhm.
track of everything, just so that you have, you can recall things, because you think you're going to remember everything, but you're not.
mm-mm. A strategy that I use for my student teachers when they're preparing for an interview is I will talk about like some common questions are like, how has a student grown mathematically well in your classroom? So I'll just come up with these questions and I'll have them come up with a story instead of just saying, oh yeah, they have. It's like, no, give an example. So last week, Mackenzie was struggling with math. I helped her by blah, 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 blah. And then when she took her test, she was able to get a 92 or something like that. So give an exact story.
It's also good just with a co-teacher for the reflections. And like, I remember that they told me, oh, make a reflection of everything. And I'm going, yeah, if I lived through it, I don't need to reflect. But you do get a lot of, oh my gosh, that's what I did. I should have done this differently.
Mhm.
And so it's really a powerful thing to have a teaching buddy, a work wife, to just vent off of and bounce your ideas off.
Mhm. And make sure you, when you're preparing for your interview, they'll oftentimes ask you, when did something go wrong and what did you do about it? So when something goes wrong, I always tell my student teacher, well, don't look at that as a negative. What are you going to do differently? That happens to all of us. So like with Jackie and I co-teaching Algebra 1, like she'll call me after the first period and say, okay, we got to fix this. And so we'll fix it. We do that all the time. And as long as you're fixing it and revising it, that's what it's all about. That's his journey.
When I do something stupid in class or the presentation has a mistake or something, my kids will say, aren't you going to get on your phone and go text that other lady so she knows what to do right in her class? Yeah, so she always looks good.
Yeah, thanks for that.
You're welcome.
All right. And then classroom management. This is kind of tricky to practice. And we discussed this before our presentation today of like, wow, let the students' teachers establish their own routines. Now, we were lucky with our student teachers being year long because they got to see first semester and then they got to be with the second semester. But then again, we had that COVID, you're at home, you're not with the kids moment. So it was tricky for us this year too, to get them to establish their own routines. And then this is one of the things I have my student teachers do. At the end of student teaching, ask them what bothered them. So you're done with student teaching. What bothered you about coming to school? What stressed you out? Then I help them write their rules and standards for their classroom so that they can eliminate that problem. Because if we wait to deal with this until the fall, I'm not going to be with that person. And then everything's like, oh, I got my job. I'm so excited. You forget that, oh my gosh, that was terrible. So before my student teachers leave, I try to have them have a outline of like a classroom procedure ready to go and so that they're trying to eliminate the stuff that bothers them.
Just the stupid little things like, oh my gosh, every kid in the world has to go to the bathroom during my class, and every kid in the world has to sharpen their pencil, and those little things that you need to establish from the beginning for your classroom management.
Because something might bother her that doesn't bother me. But if it bothers you, you don't want to dread coming to school because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and then like, if you're just frustrated with classroom management, and we talked about the observations, find out from the administration or from your cooperating teacher, which teachers have very few office referrals, and go talk to them or observe them. Go seek them out. Like, how do you do it without writing kids up? What's your secret?
I had a really good friend when I taught middle school, which is so much fun. I truly enjoyed it, but I taught middle school and she had this great strategy. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do that. It did not work for me at all. And it was phenomenal for her. So just the more that you can get ideas of, and then try it out while you're student teaching. Just ask your cooperating teacher, can I try this? And they might go, it's not going to work. And just say, well, can I just please try it? And you might find out that it works great for you, because what my management system is might not be the same as yours. And that doesn't mean that you have to do exactly what I do. You got to find what works for you. And the student teaching time is the 16 weeks that you can try and fail and have a safety net, and it's going to be okay before you get off on your own. So just, you got to, again, advocate for yourself and say, so I saw Melissa do this. Can I try this in the classroom? And yeah, sure. I mean, hopefully they'll say sure.
Because remember, when you try and fail, that's a nice story for your interview.
There you go.
Okay. And then differentiated
Oh,
instruction.
you're so good at this. She is. She should do a whole thing on it. She's so good at it.
So you can differentiate the content. Now in our classes, which we have, you know, it's high school, so they have to meet certain requirements and they have to know how to do certain things. It's kind of tricky to differentiate the content, really, but we differentiate the process. So, okay, we have another session on the flipped classroom, but this is kind of my thing. So like there was this research back in the 70s that said, if you're an auditory learner, that's how you should learn and teachers should do this. Well, they found out that they didn't use like the correct methods, but we can take from that if we do auditory, visual, kinesthetic, and tactile activities every week, then somebody's going to love coming to class, because we want our students to think this is their favorite class.
We tell them it is if they don't know it.
And we tell them we don't tell their other teachers. So it'll be our little secret, you know, so they can admit it.
Yeah. it's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So so like for me, I want somebody to go up there and show me something and then I will do it. She likes to sing and like do things, and she has songs for things. I don't like to sing. You have songs.
I do have songs.
Yeah.
If the zero's on the bottom, undefined, we could keep going, but we'll stop.
But if the zero's on the top, then the zero is what you got.
If the zero's on the bottom,
Undefined.
undefined.
That was extra. All right. So,
We'll charge it for that one.
so anyway, so some students love that. Some students love that auditory to hear that song.
Where I have other kids who just put their hands over their ears going, oh my God, she's singing again.
Uh-huh. Yep. But what we try to do is every week we try to meet something with all of those modalities in our lesson plans. So every week we try to do something auditory, something visual, something tactile, something kinesthetic, because we don't want any kid to feel like their needs aren't being met in our math class. So yeah.
We get them up, we move them around. The kid who wants to be at the board, we try to get him to the board. The kid who wants to sit at the seat, we try to get him to their seat. We try to, we introduce them to every single thing. So like she said, we hit them somewhere along the line, they get some learning.
we use spoons.
That's in the flipped classroom now. We're trying to advertise that one.
Okay. Yeah.
It's much better.
Our next session's on flipped classroom.
Flip it.
Flip it good. Okay. And then assessment. So obviously the assessments can be differentiated for students, especially with your special needs students. So you want to definitely check the IEPs to see how you need to differentiate during their assessments. And in high school, you really have to check that, because they're all going to be taking the SAT for graduation requirements now. So we have to make sure that we're giving them practice in their assessments that match their IEP and that also match the expectation they're going to have for the IDOE to get their diploma.
I don't have anything to add.
Okay. Okay. So we also have to teach our student teachers to use data. So getting data is sometimes kind of tricky. So we have some good ideas for that as well. So here's an idea. So if you want these handouts, you can email us and we have a handout packet for you on the ones that are copyright approved.
Yeah,
Yeah, we don't break rules. We're rule followers.
very much.
Yeah. Okay. So this one, so formative assessment tally sheet. So you can write the name of the assessment. And then let's say let's just pretend like there's 11. There were more than that, but I had to cut it out to make it fit so you could see it. But what you do is it says place a check mark next to each item that you had incorrect on this formative assessment and pass it to the next student. So the first student gets it and they just put a check mark. If they miss questions 6 and 10, they put check, and then they pass it. And then every student just puts check marks. And then when you get the paper back, you haven't had to collect all the data, but you have the data now. And so you can see which questions were missed, and then you can make appropriate actions to help the students understand that.
Which means changing your lesson plans for tomorrow. So you have to change it on the fly.
Yep. But you can do that in a warm up or a bell ringer. Yeah. Yep. Okay, and then similar, you can, I mean,
Well,
these are
you've
just-
also done a Google Doc. I
yeah,
keep telling you that's my favorite, but you didn't add a slide.
yeah, I didn't, but her favorite was my Google Doc. And so how did that work?
The kids
Oh,
had,
yeah.
the kids had a module test.
Mhm.
And so then they just went in and it was question 1, and then it was yes or no. So they got it right or wrong. And so
Mhm.
then we just got all the yes and no's, and it was the data for the entire Algebra 1
Department, yeah.
department.
Yeah.
So we collected everybody's data from that. And then we had a whole group thing. Okay, this is where the kids are weak. So we knew what we had to work on. And I liked that because it gave us everybody's data.
Yeah, that was nice because, you know, it was one Google Doc, but when, I don't know if you, they're young, they know.
They
how-
know things.
You guys know how Google Docs work, but it was kind of exciting for us because everybody had the same link and the kids took their test and we wanted them to look through each question anyway. So they just clicked yes or no, right or wrong. And then we could meet as a team and figure it
And
out.
we
So it was
discussed it,
nice.
and then we came up with ways to help remediate.
Mhm. Yeah.
Teamwork,
good.
collaboration. huge.
Collaboration, yeah. Okay, so then what do we do with this? Well, so one of the examples I used in calculus, I wanted to tell you guys about. So I went through and checked out which students missed what. And the students who got an A+, I gave them the Purdue calculus test and the answer key. So they would work one question, then one of the kids would pull it out and see if the whole group got it. Then they'd hide the answer sheet and they'd do it again because they didn't want to just cheat. They wanted to know if they could do it. So that was nice. And then I had 2 groups of students who missed optimization problems, and then 2 groups of students who missed the antiderivative problems. And so I had my student teacher work with one of the groups and I worked with one of the groups. So I was going back and forth between the 2 antiderivative groups and they were going back and forth between the optimization groups. And so then we were able to help the kids figure out what they missed and then give them examples. But we were able to use that data for half of the period. And you know what the bonus was? I got observed during that lesson. I know.
You always get the good observations.
It was good. Anyway, okay. Oh, and when you teach, you get random evaluations. They don't tell you when they're coming in.
Great.
So, yeah.
It's great.
Okay. Now, this is super important. I don't know what content you guys are in, but it's important that students attend to precision. And for some reason, we don't know why, we've gotten away from the fact that students have to be confident in knowing what 3 times 5 is. You know, remember when Jackie
0 times 2 is 2.
she didn't know that?
Did not know that.
But we seriously at the high school level will say, what happens if you add 1 and the students be like, they have to use their hand, like,
Go back to drawing.
yeah, well, anyway. So look at the next one. It's not until students have practiced upwards of about 24 times that they reach 80% competency. Marzano, Pinkering, Pollock, 2001. So Marzano's book was one that we both had here at our corporation. They kind of pushed that on us, but that's super important. And think about it, anything that you do, like my son was a swimmer, her kids were tennis players. You have to practice what you're doing in order to be competent at it. But for some reason we think, oh, we just take that out of the classroom. It's not important, but we have to make sure that they can do these skills. So we call it fluency. So we have them practice fluency. We want them to be able to like go quickly and accurately. So it's almost like their pencil has a mind of its own. So that's what we kind of talk about. And then with our ESSER funds, our school has purchased IXL, which is just, we can assign them suggestions and they can practice during their, like if they finish their homework early, they can go on there and practice different skills. And with the ESSER funds, that's a result of the COVID monies or whatever it's called. And so they know that that's going to help the kids try to get caught up, because we do notice that there's a lot of skills that they're lacking this year.
Well, and IXL's for every subject and every grade level. So no matter what grade or subject you're in, you might want to check it out. You can get a free account. You can do so many problems every day free, but it's kind of a good thing to just have as a resource in your back pocket. So I don't know, Google IXL.
Yeah. Google
Sounds
IXL. Yeah, they're young.
They know it.
They know. Okay. And then, oh, look, perfect. Look, we only have 3 minutes and look, our last slide. Okay. So pretend you are sick day, Jackie.
So we had a student teacher who actually called in sick, because it happens. We all get sick. And so she's with a first-time cooperating teacher. He's never done this before. So he came over, he goes, what do I do? I said, okay, well, I never really thought about this. You don't know how to be sick. And so all of a sudden, when you are sick, you forget what you need to do. So I think that something that you want to ask your cooperating teacher is, can we just pretend I'm going to be sick next week and I can plan and I can make sure that I know what is expected of me if I'm not going to be there. So hopefully you're not ever going to be sick,
Mm-mm.
but it does happen. And just, you have to know how to have a day gone, because we have teachers all the time that miss school. I'm the department head, so this falls on me. If we have a teacher not here and they don't have any plans, I got to come up with something for them. So you just need to learn how to be prepared to not be there.
Mhm. And then also practice writing a parent or class email. So at the beginning of each unit, we send out emails to the parents and say, hey, we're starting a new unit, blah, blah, blah. And so it's really, even if you don't send it, write that email. So figure out what do we need to say? What are the important things to tell the parents? Because with parent relationships, I know it seems intimidating, but if you can approach it as you're the person that's sending them out and you're the one starting the conversation, then honestly, like how many responses? I've gotten maybe 3 all year responses to our emails. Have you gotten many? They don't really, because if they have the information they need, that's what they need to
Yeah.
know. But when they feel like they don't know information, that's when they're going to start, oh, what's going on? What are you doing? This is what I heard, blah, blah. But no, we're being proactive. We're giving them all the information for this unit. Here are the assignments. Here's the calendar, everything you need to know, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
I'm watching the time.
Okay, go real quick. Preparing for exams. This is her thing. Preparing for exams.
Okay, I didn't know this was my thing. What do I?
But the test, they don't practice writing it.
Oh, writing the
yeah.
test. Okay, that's what we were talking about.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Mm.
So again, we give you all of our material as a cooperating teacher because we think our material is stellar, but you need to learn how to make your own stellar material. So even if the teacher gives you a test, you need to try to write your own test or ask them, can I write a test for this unit? Or can I write a quiz? Can I do something? Because when you go out there, you might be the only teacher. Oh, we got 57 seconds.
Okay,
Talk about the Oreo fast.
Oh, and then when you're trying to do a parent teacher conference, it's really hard because you've never even been in one, right? No. So I always,
48.
okay, the Oreos cookie method. So when you're getting ready to go into a parent conference, Oreo cookie method, think of something good because everyone's heard good things about their kid. Then say what needs to be said. What is it they need to fix? Then end with something good. Oreo cookie method. It works every time.
Or you can give them Oreo cookies. Woo!
Yes, we were going to give you cookies. If we had been in person, you would have gotten cookies.
Sorry, but we'll
Sorry.
eat them instead.
Yeah, we're good at that.
Okay, thanks for coming.
Thanks for coming.
Good luck.
Yeah, bye.
So do we just leave it right now?
Oh, wait, she said not do that, right?
Oh,
Is that
no,
what we're
she
not
said don't
supposed
close them up.
Okay.
We better mute.
to mute? How do we mute?
We
Oh.
gotta stop sharing.